King Tut, the last successor of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He died when he was a teenager. He was laid for rest and eventually forgotten. In 1922, his tomb was discovered by an archaeologist. Since then, people have wondered about how he died, with murder being the most extreme possibility. Now, on the 5th of January, 2005, Tut is being taken for a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death.
An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust as King Tut was taken out from his resting place in the Valley of the Kings. The world's most famous mummy was about to be scanned to solve the medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler of Egypt. All afternoon, the tourists have visited Tut's tomb, some 26 feet underground. They gazed at the murals on the walls and at Tut's golden face. Some visitors read from guidebook, others stood silently, perhaps thinking about Tut's death in his late teens, or wondering with a shiver if the pharaoh's curse, that death or misfortune falls upon those who disturb him, was really true.
The mummy is in very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s.
Carter. Howard Carter. He was the one who discovered Tut's tomb in 1922. When he found it, the contents were, surprisingly, complete. Nothing was missing. Even now, they remain the richest royal collection ever found. In Tut's time, the royal people were very rich, and they thought that they could take the treasure with them, even after dying. For this reason, King Tut was provided with all the glittering goods. Precious collars, necklaces, bracelets, rings, etc., and most importantly, the mask and the inner coffin, all made of gold. After months of carefully recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures,
Pharaoh, ancient Egyptian king,
Carter began investigating his 3 nested coffins.
Nested coffins, multiple coffins placed inside larger coffins.
When he opened the first one, he found a shroud, decorated with garlands of willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cauliflowers. That means he was buried in March or April, because these plants grow in these months. When finally he opened the innermost coffin, and he reached the mummy, he ran into trouble. The resins, that is, the white coating on the mummy, had become hard, thus cementing him to the bottom of the coffin. And the resins were really hard.
No amount of legitimate force can move them. What is to be done? The sun beat down like hammer this far south in Egypt. I will try to use it to loosen the resins.
For several hours, he set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine that heated it to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing moved. He reported,
"The hardened material has to be cut away from below the limbs and trunk to raise the king's remains.
You may consider it wrong to damage the mummy, which is of a historical importance." But Carter had a point.
If I don't cut the mummy, thieves will, somehow, rip the guards apart to remove the gold.
So he did it himself. Carter's men removed the mummy's head, and cut nearly every major joint. Once they had finished collecting the gold, they reassembled the remains on a layer of sand in a wooden box with a support that hid the damaged areas. This wooden box is now the bed where Tut now rests. See? What an archaeologist did to the most popular mummy, but now, archaeology has changed, focusing less on treasure, and more on the fascinating details of life, and intriguing mysteries of death. It also uses more sophisticated tools, including medical technology. X-ray was already done. In 1968, an anatomy professor X-rayed the mummy, and revealed a startling fact. Below the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done with CT, that is, computed tomography. In this, Hundreds of X-rays in cross-section are put together to create a 3D virtual body. Now it's Tut's time for his CT scan. What more would a CT scan reveal of Tut than the X-ray? And could it answer two of the biggest questions still there? How did he die, and how old was he when he died? King Tut's death was a big event. He was the last of his family's line, and his death was the death of a dynasty. But the details of his death and its aftermath are unclear.
Amenhotep III, who was Tut's father, or perhaps grandfather, was a powerful pharaoh. He ruled almost 4 decades. Then, his son, Amenhotep IV, became the ruler. He began one of the strangest periods in the history of ancient Egypt.
It must have been a horrific time. The family that had ruled for centuries was coming to an end, and then Akhenaten went a little wacky.
He did many strange things. He promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk. He changed his name to Akhenaten, that is, servant of the Aten. He moved the religious capital from the old city, Thebes, to the new city, Akhenaten, which was also known as Amarna. Further, he attacked Amun, the major god, by smashing his images and closing his temples. After his death, a mysterious ruler, Smenkhkar, appeared for a very short period and exited without a trace. And then came our famous teenager, King Tut. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, which means living image of Amun. He took control of restoring things to the old ways. He ruled for 9 years, and then died. No one knows how.
Let's get back to his scanning. A CT machine scanned the mummy, creating 1700 digital X-ray images. Tut's head, scanned in 0.62 mm slices, takes on weird detail in the resulting image. The night of the scan, workmen carried Tut from the tomb, in his box, to the ground level. Then they rose a hydraulic lift into the trailer that had the scanner in it. 20 minutes later, 2 men emerged, ran to an office nearby, and returned with a pair of white plastic fans. Why? Because the $1 million scanner had quit because of sand in a cooler fan. Normal thing. Or maybe.
Curse of the Pharaoh. He.
Eventually, the substitute fans worked well enough to finish the procedure. Then the mummy was again sent to his tomb. In the trailer, a technician pulled up astonishing images of Tut on a computer screen. For now, the pressure was off. Zahihawe smiled, visibly relieved that nothing had gone wrong.
I didn't sleep last night, not for a second. I was so worried. But now, I think I will go and sleep.
By the time we left the trailer, the wind had stopped, maybe because Tut was again in his tomb. Just above the entrance of his tomb stood Orion, the constellation that the ancient Egyptians knew as the soul of Osiris, the god of afterlife, watching over the boy king.